Hey guys, if you don't know me, Chris Peshek, I'm a realtor in Dripping Springs, Texas, just outside of Austin, Texas. I had some clients that are new to owning a house in Texas, and they were asking me about protesting property taxes. We've talked about that when they were going through their, through their purchase process and everything. So they suggested that I should do a video on this, and that's what I'm doing. So, you know, the information in this is good. The downside is that with AI and everything else, counties are getting better at kind of doing their job well. So it's a little harder to fight your property taxes, even though the counties are always trying to get more than what I think that they need. And I'm not going to go down the road of talking about how what property taxes pay for and all of that stuff. That's not for this video. I'm talking about how to protest your property taxes. One of the things that I do want to talk about first is if you are owning a house in Texas, and especially if you're a recent buyer, make sure that you get your homestead exemption in place. Homestead exemption, they exempt $100,000 of the value of your home. So if you're a 2% tax rate and your house is valued at $500,000, you're paying $10,000 in taxes. Well, that would drop $2,000 off your value because it takes 100,000 off of the 500, and you're only a portion of it anyway. You get it. It saves you money. Make sure that you are a homestead exempt on your property. Now, if you're new to the state of Texas, you have to wait until you get a Texas driver's license. But then at that point, there is whatever county you live in, all you have to do is go to the county website. You can find the forms to fill out to request your homestead exemption. Likewise, if you are a disabled vet in Texas, make sure that you have all that paperwork. If you have increased your level of disability, make sure that they have that paperwork as well, because as your disability goes up, you get more and more exemptions. If you're 100% disabled, it's full exemption from most of the property taxes. So anyway, make sure that you've got those exemptions in place. But what I'm going to do today, I'm going to talk about a couple of processes that I've used and that I go through to protest your property taxes. First of all, always protest your property taxes every year. Do it. Keep your property taxes as low as possible. Just for the simple fact of nobody wants to overpay on their taxes, and you always want to hold the government accountable for what they're doing with your money and how much of your money they get. So protest your property taxes every year. File the protest with the county. And I'm not going to go through all of that with you. Well, you know what? I'll show you a little something here on. I live in Hays County, so I'm going to bring up Hays County. And this is Hays CAD, Central Appraisal District. If you don't know your county's Central Appraisal District address, just search your county name and Central Appraisal District, and it's going to pop up. And you can go in here. So right here is online protest and protest information in Hays County. And most of the counties in Texas are like this now. It's kind of almost like a blanket format that they use for these sites, at least in Central Texas. So you can go on there. It tells you exactly how to file not later than May 15th or within 30 days after a notice of appraisal was mailed to you. So, there's some leeway in there, but just have in your mind May 15th as the day you have to have it in. ARB is the Appraisal Review Board. That is the people that you will make your arguments to. You don't have to necessarily go in front of the board. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but that's just kind of giving you the information on that. Filing your protest, you have different ways to do it. You can do an online filing, and there should be, right here, there's a filing portal, file an appeal. By the way, guys, as you're watching this, if you've got questions, ask, because I'm likely to miss some stuff. But this is going to stay up on YouTube and my Facebook site, so you can go, or a Facebook page. It'll be Chris Peshek, which is my normal Facebook page, my personal one, and also Dripping Springs Home Team. So you can look at both of those Facebook sites or my YouTube channel, Living in Austin, Texas, and you can go back and pause and rewatch and all that stuff. I'm just going to leave these up. So anyway, you've got different options you can do. You can do an e-file. You can file an appeal by paper. You can take it into them, U.S. mail, and it tells you where to mail that in. So it just tells you everything that you need to go through in order to file your protest. And then once you've filed your protest, you've got different options. You can appear via an affidavit. So you can do a sworn affidavit with a notary. You can, there's the forms that you use. You can show up in person. Sometimes you can do a phone protest, like when you're talking to them live. Anyway, and so here's the forms that you're going to need. This form is the same throughout the state of Texas. It's a 5132, but they've already pre-populated with Hays Central Appraisal District. Okay, if you're not in Hays, if you're Travis, it'll be Travis County Central Appraisal District, Bastrop, Bell County, Dallas County, Harris County, whatever. But the tax year is 2025. And keep in mind, guys, when you're protesting your taxes in 2025, you're not talking about the value of your home as it exists today. In Texas, your property values are taxed in arrears. So they're talking right now, when we're filing these protests in 2025, we're protesting the value that was in 2024. So it's last year's value. So if you have a realtor run comps for you, always ask for the comps for your house from the year of the actual tax valuation, which is 2024 now. It's always in arrears, so make sure you understand that. But that's what the form looks like. You fill it in, and again, there's an online way you can do it. You can also mail it in. That's just kind of how you go about doing that. And I didn't mean to close that. I wanted to go back and show you the rest of that site. Also on that protest form, I'm going to zoom in on this. There's a couple of different things here. You can identify yourself as a person that's 65 and older. And if you're 65 and older, there are further exemptions in Texas. So make sure that they know when you're over 65. If you have disabilities, if you're a military service member, if you're a military veteran, or the spouse of, make sure they have all that information, because there's different levels of tax. I'm trying to think of the right word. Basically, they reduce your taxes for different reasons based on your status. So make sure that they understand your status and who you are. They're going to ask you reasons for protest. What I do on all of mine, and there are other reasons on here that you can use. But if you just have a house like mine, you're in a neighborhood, you want to protest your taxes, I always check incorrect appraised market value and or unequal compared with other properties. And then I also do, where's my other one? Oh, they've moved these things around. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry. And again, if you've got questions, guys, pop them in. This is probably going to be a pretty long video. It looks like they changed this now, because the other one that it had, and I guess they've combined it. It used to say something that it was unequitable or unequal compared to other properties, but it's all in one now. So you can just check that first box if you're doing a regular protest. It'll ask you your opinion of value. You can do that. I personally don't. I want them kind of to, well, we'll get into my process later. But if you want to give them an opinion of value, you can do that. What this does is, if you have no desire to show up in person and protest your value in front of the board, put a value in there. And they can approve the value, they can deny the value, they can offer you a settlement. And that's something that's new over the last few years. Sometimes, because here's the thing, as more and more people are buying houses, and as houses are built, these counties have more and more of these appraisals to get through. So what they're doing is they're going in a lot of times and kind of reevaluating quickly, and they'll send out oh, look, we'll reappraise you and offer you X. If they appraise you at 500 and you request 450, they may send you an offer at 475 and say, hey, is this okay with you? And you can take that. That's fine. And people ask me all the time, should I take that? Is that a good value? I don't know. It's up to you. Do you want to take the time to go show up in person and further protest, or are you okay with them reducing it some? So that's completely up to you. Provide facts that may help resolve the protest. Guys, one of the easiest things to do when you're protesting your property, now this doesn't really work for a new home, but if you've got an existing home, guys, we all have issues with our houses. You may have a door that is busted. If you got a hole in the door or a hole in a wall, your garage ceiling may be falling down. You may have cracks in your brick or in your stone, or maybe your driveway has to be replaced or your fence is falling down. Okay. All of those things diminish the value of your home. Think about it as you're going to sell your home, right? Well, all of those things that a buyer would want to be fixed, that depreciates or lowers the value of your home. So those are the types of things that if they exist, list them out. And then you're going to have the ability you can take pictures of those things as well. So if your house might, if it was in perfect shape, it would be worth 500, but your roof is 25 years old and it has to be replaced, and you've got brick falling and your fascia boards are rotted and all this other stuff. Tell them about it, because they do want to get a correct opinion of value. They do want to value your house correctly. So tell them about it here. Take pictures of it, because you'll be able to send those pictures along. Do you request an informal conference? I always do. And what that looks like is they'll call you on the phone, or sometimes you can go in and you just get to talk to one person one-on-one, and you can explain to them, this is why I think my house is of less value, and they'll ask you questions, and it's a really informal conversation, and it's pretty nice. So if you're not a confrontational person, maybe that's a good way to go about doing it. But I always request my informal in addition to my formal, because I want to know what information the county has on my house. I want to talk to them, see where they're appraising it, where they're getting the numbers and stuff like that. When I used to do my own protests, I would go through this whole process, and it was a pain in the butt, but I'm also able to keep the value of my house in the county's eyes down as low as humanly possible. So again, what's worth your time? And I'll leave that up to you. Again, I see some more people joining on. Guys, if y'all have questions about the protest process, or, like how to do it, put the questions in the comments. And again, I'm just going off the top of my head here because I had a client that asked me to do this. Lauren, Stephen, this is for y'all. So just so you know. And then you can also request a single member ARB panel, and again, appraisal review board, or a regular panel of at least 3. I do 3, a regular panel, just because to me, and it doesn't always work like this, but if you can get in front of 3 people, if you can convince 2 of them, or even if you can convince 1, sometimes they can kind of bring the other ones along with you. So you do have to get consensus with them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that process later, but I always like to be in front of 3 people as opposed to 1, because if one person's having a bad day, you may be screwed, but it's generally not where 3 people are all having a bad day at the same time. I personally like to do mine in person. You can choose to do a telephone conference. You can do a video conference, or you can do that written affidavit like we talked about earlier. And then how do you want your notice to be delivered? Only check 1, first-class mail or certified mail. Me personally, I don't want to waste tax dollars, so I always do regular first-class mail. I have never not gotten one. I guess they actually make you pay for the certified now. That's changed also. They used to not make you pay for the certified. And then it says, if a protest goes to a hearing, the ARB automatically sends each party a copy of the hearing procedures. So you're going to get an envelope, and they'll send out, like, this is what you do. You bring 5 copies of your documents, show up at this time, and it walks you through exactly what to do. And then I always say, yes, text it to me and email it to me, because I'll miss an email or it'll end up in junk, and then you're kind of hosed. So I always do text and email there. You can do special panel. That's really not necessary for houses. If your property is appraised at 57 million or greater, whenever you go to sell that property, please give me a call. I would love to sell that for you. That's not going to apply to most people. And then it'll ask you what your property classification is. The other thing that I want to, and they don't have this box on here anymore, what I want you to do is in here, and you can't do this on the online submission, but you can email them after the fact. And if you've already protested your taxes for this year, send an email to the county tax appraisal, whatever email they give you. On this one, it's like Hayes, info@hayescad.com or .org, I believe. And it'll be an email address like that. Always request the evidence packet. If you're sending in a paper form here, write on here, please send me the evidence packet. You want to know what houses they're comparing you to if you're going to go down this road. Now, this is kind of the long way of doing that. I'm going to show you a little bit of shorter way also, but this is kind of the whole process. Now, what I used to do in the past is once I sent all that stuff in, I would play this little game with them. I learned this from a guy who used to, and this is back in the early 2000s. He taught me this, and his whole job was protesting property taxes for people. And you can hire people to protest your taxes for you. I have now hired a company called Abode. If you want that information, let me know. I'll send you a link that and it's easy. You sign up, you put in your property information, and then they take care of everything, and they send you updates along the way via email about what's going on, where it is in the process. And at this point, companies like Abode, they only charge you a portion of what they save you in cash money. So if they save you $1,000, I think Abode maybe charges 30%. So you write them a check or payment for $300. Nobody writes checks anymore. You give them payment for $300. So if they say, for me, yeah, it makes sense. You go save me money, and yes, I will pay you for that right. And then some companies, they'll charge you a processing fee, whether or not they save you money. One of the reasons I like Abode is they don't have that additional fee. Some of the companies, it's like, it's $80 unless we save you money, and then we'll take that $80 out of the money that you owe us. It's that type of thing. Abode doesn't do that. If they don't save you money, you don't pay them anything, which is pretty nice. So the game that I used to play with them was I would always send my paperwork in via mail on the last possible day, May 15th. That's when it went in, because the thought process was, we're dealing with humans. I want to get as far to the back of the line as humanly possible, and humans are going to fatigue over time, and we're going to take advantage of that fatigue, and it works. I'm telling you, it works. It's worked for years for me. So you put that in, and they're going to send you all your information back. Hey, here's your packet. This is when your protest hearings are going to be, and all of that. And then the other part of that game is they'll allow you one reschedule on a formal hearing. So you go in for your informal, you talk to them, and then you keep your formal hearing. If they don't give you what you want, right? At the informal, they can give you what you're asking for. But if they don't give you what you want, then you're going to keep your formal hearing. And about 10 days to 2 weeks ahead of that, you're going to call in and you're going to say, hey, I'm going to request an extension. I want to move my hearing date back. And it bumps it back even further. So while most people are doing their protests and getting all this stuff done, like in June and July, I was always having my protests in September and October. And again, they get fatigued. So it's a little bit easier to kind of, work them down on that price. It's a negotiation technique. What can I say? So that's kind of the long and short of it. And then when you go in, if you go in for a formal protest, they're going to, you're going to sit there. There's going to be a member of an appraiser there, a county appraiser. You're going to have somebody taking notes, kind of like a stenographer. And then you're going to be sitting in front of a panel of 3 people. And those 3 people are, they're not employed by the county. They are just residents. And that's kind of the way that the state of Texas has worked it out. You're making your argument to residents. And so the idea is that you're talking to people who are not getting paid by the county. So there's not a conflict of interest, that type of thing. Now, in years past, the residents that were on that board, I don't know how, and Bastrop County, you're one of the worst. Those people somehow, some way had a vested interest in this and had, it showed. And again, Bastrop County is the absolute worst. If you live in Bastrop County, guys, Godspeed, and hire somebody else to do it for you, because you'll lose your mind with it. But anyway, you'll go and you'll talk to these 3 people. They'll say, hey, do you want to go first? Would you like the county to go first? I always like to go first and kind of lay my case out before, the group of people. And then the county will go. And what the county always does is, hey, look, these are the houses that we compared them to, and this is their value. The county does the same thing over and over. You have the ability then to respond to the county and say, yeah, you can use those houses as comps, but that thing's 5 miles away. Here's a better comp that's only 1 mile away, that type of thing. So you go back and forth a couple of times, and then the county will ask you to make your recommendation on value, and then the board will take that into consideration along with what both sides have said, and then they'll talk and kind of discuss. They may ask some more questions for clarification, and then one of them will make a motion to either leave the value as is or drop the value, or they could even increase the value. I've never seen that happen, but I keep being told that they can. And then they're going to vote, and it'll end up carrying through, and it's over. So, again, it's a little bit confrontational to go in. If you don't like being in front of people, maybe not the best thing, but you can get that information ahead of time, or you might be able to get an offer ahead of time from the county if you do that. Okay, that's that process. And I know I've still got some folks on right now. I'm going to switch over to how to find data to make your point. I'm going to dig in. I'm probably not going to look at the camera much anymore. I'm going to bring this other screen back up. And where are we? I don't want to do Hays. Okay. I'm not choosing my area. I'm just randomly going to go to an area. Bell County is on the north side of Austin. So if you search your county CAD, like I'd mentioned, you're going to go to the tax appraisal district. Okay. And all of these counties kind of look the same. Like I said, there's Hays, there's Bell County. Oh, the colors are different. And there's a few things that you need to know on here. One of them, property search. Like you can go and you can search all the property information in Texas is public information. Now, it's a non-disclosure state. You don't have to tell anybody what you paid for the property, but it's public information. So you can search any property in those counties. But what I want you to do is I want you to go to Interactive Map. And this is something that I found to be very, very, very helpful. And the reason I do this is it uses the county's own information against them. And so what you would do is you would go in and maybe find your address, right? You type in your address and it's going to zoom in and it's going to say, hey, here you are right here. And I don't want to, oh, well, that's a business area. That is not what I wanted. I was thinking that was a subdivision. Let's go, here you are right here. Okay. Good gosh almighty. You would think I would have set this up ahead of time. I apologize. Let me find us a subdivision here. Nope. There we go. That's a subdivision. Okay, here's your property here. And again, guys, if y'all are watching this and you've got questions, then ask them. Ask the questions. So it's going to validate my token, whatever that is. Okay, so this is a subdivision, and it's going to talk all about how, here's where the address is and the neighborhood. This is in Salado, Texas. And then it's going to talk about the taxing jurisdiction. This tells you who's taxing you. Tax Appraisal District, Bell County Roads, Belton ISD, City of Belton, Clearwater. This is a WCID, Water Conservation Improvement District. That's where they're like a MUD or municipal utility district, something like that. Keep scrolling down, and this is the roll value history. Okay, this one is a bad example because there is no house on this lot. Awesome. Let me find a house. This is what I get for doing this just without putting in prior search. Okay, here we go. So now we've got a house, and the house improvement value is $283,000. The land market value is $34,000. I see one issue already. And the appraised value for this is $317,435. And that's this year. That's the 2025 year. And the assessed value is the same value. Okay. If we go back to last year, the value was 308. Okay. And the assessed value was 307. So this cap loss is the difference between the assessed value and the appraised value. Now, the reason that we have a cap loss sometimes is they can appraise your house for whatever the market value is. Okay. But if the market value here is $1 million, but you locked in a homestead exemption or some other exemption disabled vet exemption, over 65 exemption, whatever. These values are probably going to be different between the appraised value and assessed value. Case in point, homestead valuation, they can only increase your assessed value 10% every year. It caps it at 10%. Your appraised value can go up a lot. Like I said, it can go up to $1 million, but if the assessed value can only go up 10% from this, then it'll only go up $30,000 in a year, even though your appraised value may have gone up $1 million. I hope that makes sense. So a lot of times there will be a difference between appraised and assessed values. And again, here in 2023, it was even larger. They have a homestead exemption. And if you're not sure if you have a homestead exemption, where is it on their county site? It should tell you, it should say HS in here somewhere. And I'm not seeing that exemption. So maybe they don't have a homestead exemption. Oh, it's going to be up here. Sorry. Exemption. Okay. So this is a disabled vet and also a homestead exemption. So they've got some exemptions on there. So if you're not sure, at the top of this page, it tells you if you have your exemption in there. Excuse me. So right here, there was a $22,000 difference between the assessed value and the appraised value. And notice what happens. Even though the appraised value didn't go up very much over the course of 2 years, it went up $16,000. Look what happened to the assessed value. It went up from 79, what is that, $37,000. So it only went up 10% a year, but when the appraised value stopped going up or slowed down, the assessed value can continue to go up 10% every year until these two equal back out. That's why it's important to protest your taxes every year, because, you know, if you're like, oh, they only went up 10%, they only went up 10%. Yeah, that's fine. But if you're appraised, like if the market is like it is now and the values aren't going up or not going up as fast, you have got to protest to keep these numbers closer together so they can't keep increasing your values 10% every year, even if the market's going the opposite way. That's why it's important to protest these every year. But getting on to it. Okay, this house now has increased in value. I'm doing rough numbers in my head. $9,000, that's 3%. Okay, from 2008 to 2017, that's 3%. So what I do is I go back to this site, and I'm going to go in a little bit closer. Okay, that's them, and I'm going to start looking at the neighbors. So here I'm going to pull that neighbor up, and it's going to open up a new window for me. And what did my neighbor's values do? My neighbor's value went up about 5%. Okay. And again, if you've got a calculator, you know, do it, but they went up 5%. I'm in a pretty good spot with them, so I'm not worried about them. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to go to the next neighbor. And hopefully I find a couple here that show you what I'm doing. This one went up $8,000. So that's a little less than 3%. Okay, so they went up less than me. I want to use their information. The one next to them. And again, guys, if y'all have got questions, please drop them in here. Hey, yeah. I'm glad to have people watching me live. Let's see what this one went up. 337 to 348, again, about 11,000. So that one's higher. That's, you know, that's almost 4%. That one's not going to make our argument for us. Let's go across the road. And what I'm looking for, guys, is I'm trying to find values that went up less than mine, that are really close neighbors, or values that didn't go up at all, may have gone the other direction. Okay, this one's $11,000, again, 4%. Let me go down to the other side of this. What I find more times than not when I'm looking at these for clients is that there is always 2 or 3 houses you can find, like in the block, where the values didn't go up as much or they went up less. Okay, that one's 4%. Man, I picked the neighbor that was the lowest one on the block. Let's check another one here. Oh, that's a county, a city property. That's probably a retention pond or something like that. And that one went up also. Okay, not really making my point for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to Hays County, and I'm going to pull up my house. And I hope my neighbors don't get too mad at me for doing this. That's the reason I wasn't going to do this. So we're going to go into, well, shoot. Here we go. All right. So, and I won't do my direct house. I'm going to pick another neighbor down here because I know that there's discrepancies here. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and we're going to look. This property value went down $11,000. Okay, this is Hays County. So they dropped that value $11,000. I'm going to go to their next door neighbor and their value went up almost $100,000. I'm going to show you that again. This is the next door neighbor. Their value went down $11,000. This one went up almost $100,000. That is a data point. When you protest your taxes, you take yours, and I'm going to say this is your value, and you're like, look, you increased my taxes 15%. I'm doing numbers in my head. I don't know what it is. And here's another thing. I can tell you right now that this house sold last year, and the counties love to do this stuff because look, it was 507 and they jumped this thing to 840. That tells me that there was not a homestead in place last year, but the year before there was, because look how low these or how small these increases are. So if you bought a house, this is a thing that you really need to do, especially if it's a resale home, is go in and look, because the county loves to just say, hey, your value is now $840,000. And chances are you may have paid $800,000 and you're like, no, my value is not 840. So what the county loves to do is they say, hey, prove it to us. Show us your bill of sale. This is not a bill of sale, your settlement statement. Show us your settlement statement. And we'll value your property where your settlement statement, where you bought it for. So if you bought it for 800, we're happy to lower it to 800. Guys, that's BS, because they're saying it's worth 800 and that it went up $60,000. And I know you paid $800,000 for it, but that's not that's not knowledge that the county is allowed to have. They have to make their assessments and their appraisals based on the market and what's happening in the market, not individual properties. So again, going back to this house went up $80,000 or almost $100,000, sorry. And their next door neighbor dropped in value. So you tell me what's happening in the market. If it's their next door neighbor, that means that neighborhood has depreciated in value. So why are they going to increase your value? If I were this person, I would go back with a few more of these and say, no. You're showing that the value went down 1%, not up 15%. So that goes back to, remember in that form, it said not being treated equal with other properties. They're not treating you equal. I've never seen in 15 years of real estate, I have never seen a neighborhood where part of the neighborhood increased in value and the other part of the neighborhood decreased in value in the same time frame. It doesn't happen. It's not possible. Well, I'm sure it's possible, but anyway, not in my mind. So they can't say your value went up while your neighbors went down. And let's go to your other neighbor over here. Oh, no, that was the original one. Let's go to another neighbor and see what happened. Value, holy crap. That one, they have a 10% cap on it, but that value went up $200,000. If I am this person, I'm fit to be tied right now, and I'm doing this same thing, going and finding the neighbors whose property values decreased according to the county. So let's find a couple of more. And again, all I do is go around my property and find these values to see what happened. Oh, look, this one went down $4,000. I'm adding that to my arsenal and telling the county, nope, you're dropping values for some people and you're increasing values for other people. That is not treating everybody equitably. You're going to lower my value. They don't like it when you use their information against them. They absolutely hate it, but it's the best argument in the world. Okay, this property, $1.4 million, they dropped the value of this property $14,000. Okay, so again, the value went down. Let's find another one. I think you get the point at this point of going into the CAD site. This one went down $7,000. Going into the CAD site, finding the information that the county is putting out there publicly available, and finding where they're not treating you the way that they're treating everybody else in the neighborhood. It's not always going to be this blatant, and I'm going to go ahead and take this off and just talk to you a little bit. And again, if y'all have got questions, make sure you pop them into the comments, because I'm more than happy to stay on for a while and answer questions. But it's not always going to be that blatant where your value went up 17% and your neighbors went down 2%. A 19% delta is huge. And coincidentally, the reason this clued in for me today is I was checking in on an old client, and that exact same thing happened to him. The county said their value went up 17, their next door neighbor and several other ones around there all went down 1 or 2%. So it just make sure that you're being treated the same way all of your neighbors are being treated. What is usually more likely to happen, and this is what's typically happened with mine, they'll increase my value 10%, but I can find a lot of neighbors where it may have only gone up 3% or 4%. So again, the delta's not as big, it's 6%, but still, I don't mind them taxing. Well, that's a different philosophical story. Anyway, I understand the way our government is set up and they tax us. I get that. But tax me the same as you're taxing my neighbor, as you're taxing the neighbor on the other side, the neighbor behind me, the neighbor in front of me. We're all in the same neighborhood. I get some houses are newer, some houses are older. That's fine. But again, blanket across a neighborhood, values should increase at a commensurate rate and decrease at a commensurate rate. I'm in real estate. I understand this. That is called the market value, which is what the state is trying, or what the county is trying to put on your property. So all we're trying to do is help them get to their market value. Let's see. I think we got a question here. Does the county base their assessments on houses sold in 2024, or does it base any sale? Sorry, I've got my camera here. I'm having to look around. Or do they also base it off of properties not part of any sale transaction? Really good question. So yeah, first of all, so if 2025, you understand that part correctly, it's 2024. The county cannot, we're a non-disclosure state. The county should not have access to the MLS, the realtor system that has sold data. That is exclusive for realtors in Texas. The county should not have access to that. This is going to be a long answer to your question. Hold tight. Travis County got into a lot of trouble. There was a massive lawsuit, as did Hays County, because they were going in and pulling. I don't know if they had a realtor that was giving it to them. I didn't get all that far into it, but they were going in and they were pulling sold data and using sold data to price properties. Okay, that's illegal in the state of Texas, and there's a massive lawsuit. So they can't actually use sold data. They have to price it based on houses that exist. Again, in a neighborhood, if the market has gone up 2%, well, then they should do a blanket 2% increase in the neighborhood. Or if it's gone down 2%, they should do a blanket 2% decrease. Their algorithm is a lot more complicated than that. It takes into account a lot of things. On every house, they know what the building materials are, and there's certain things that are more valuable. You know, if you've got a metal roof like I do, that's a more valuable building material. So it's a different building standard. If you're wrapped in stone like I am, it's another increase. And you know, if it's a basic house with a 20-year shingle, okay, that's a decrease in value. If there's no stone on it, if it's wood siding, that's another decrease in value. And so and they also try to take into account depreciation from like wood rot and things like that. So they take all those things into account. All of that, the algorithm does it for them, and then it spits out a formula on the back side. Okay, that's what's supposed to happen. What does happen though, myself being a realtor, when I would protest my property value, one of the ways that I do it, and I don't do it this way anymore because I got tired of the county taking my data and taking the real estate data. But I would go in, and I still do this for clients. I'll send them some sold comps, and they'll go in and say, "Hey, look, county, these are sold comps in my neighborhood. My neighborhood decreased in value; it didn't increase." And the county says, "Oh, thank you very much. We'll adjust your price, but you're going to give us that data." And so that's how they would get sold information, is because people are protesting their property taxes, and they keep that data that people bring in from realtors. So that is legal if somebody uses that information to protest their taxes, or if you tell them what you sold your property for, they can use that too. They've got the sneaky little trick that whenever, and I tell all of my clients, do not answer this letter. If you buy a house, they'll send you a letter saying, hey, we saw that you bought this house. Would you mind telling us what you paid for it? Don't do it. If you tell them, they can use the information, but they're also going to tax your place accordingly, and they know exactly what that starting point is. They're not going to budge off of it. Like I just showed you a little bit ago, this lady or guy or whoever it was came in. Let me find it. They bought this house at some point last year, and they increased that value almost $100,000. That's what that gets you. So you don't want to do that. You want to make the county do their due diligence, do their jobs, and go in and assess appraised values across the board in a neighborhood, like they're supposed to. Yeah, sure. If you bought your house for $800,000, technically, should the county appraise it for $800,000? Sure. Philosophical issues, I don't want to tell them. I don't want them to know what I priced my house at. I want my tax value as low as possible because, frankly, the counties around here, well, the counties everywhere, every government entity, in my opinion, wastes way too much damn money. So I don't want to tell them that I paid $800 for my house if they're appraising my house at $720. I want it to be $720. I want to keep as much money in my pocket as possible. So I hope that answers that question for you. I think it does. And anyways, guys, again, if you've got questions on this, I'm more than happy to stand on and continue to answer questions or show you more examples of that. The big thing that I wanted you to see in this, again, is how to get into the Central Appraisal District site for your property, right? And then being able to go in here. And again, it takes time, but it's invaluable. And I can go to almost any neighborhood out here. I'm trying to see where I am here. Let's go down into Driftwood. I think that's Ranch Road 12. Here we go. Let's take a look at some of these. And I know where this is, but I'm not going to mention the neighborhood. So in here, value went down. I hope to see that across all of them. Their next door neighbor. Value went down. Good. Good job, county. That's what we like to see. Next door neighbor. Oh, where are we? Value went down. Good. That's what we should see. I wonder if there's one in here that sold and they tried to jump the value up. Nope, value went down. Love it. That's exactly what we want to see. And that's what you want to see. Look, if you go in and the first neighborhood that I looked at, because I didn't check it ahead of time, if you go in, here we go. If you go in and everybody is assessed the same or within like 1 percentage point, okay, fine, county, you did your job. Great. But I just showed you 3 or 4 examples in this neighborhood where the values went down. And then this person, the value went up over $200,000. Now, did they add a swimming pool? Nope. Swimming pool was added in 2019. So that's not the reason. That's already been valued in. And by the way, guys, adding a $200,000 swimming pool by the county is valued at about $30,000. And in real estate, you might get $50,000 or $60,000 if it's a nice pool. So pools are the quickest way to burn money out of your pocket. Buy a house that already has a swimming pool in. And they built a detached garage, but that was in 2021. So that's already been valued in as well. So there's no reason for this house to go up over $200,000, but it did. And all of their neighbors dropped in value, at least the ones that I clicked on. There were 4 in a row. They all dropped in value. This one went up $200,000. That's what we want to fight against. That's the whole point behind this. So I'm going to wrap this up. I've been going for 45 minutes already. Again, if you want to ask me more questions, that's fine. Reach out to me on Facebook. Put a comment in YouTube. My phone number is 512-736-1703. More than happy to answer any questions you have. And I feel like I need to do this. This is kind of It's a thing that a lot of people have been asking about, and I just wanted to share that knowledge. So if you've got questions on Protest or who I use, again, I personally use Abode. If you want their information, I'm more than happy to share that with you. And this is the first year I've used them, so I don't know. I'm hoping it's going to go well. I just ran out of time, and I can't do everything all the time. So I'm using somebody else, and we'll see if it happens or see if it works. Appreciate the detailed response. You got it. Good. And so if it doesn't work, I'll go back to protesting my own next year. I just figured I would try to save myself a little bit of time, and maybe they'll do a good job. So we'll see what happens. Again, if you got more questions, let me know. Love to help. All right. Have a good one.